my thoughts and in my dreams. They're always in my mind. These songs of hobbits, dwarves, and men, and elves, come close your eyes. You can see them soon.
Damn. Shit, I'd play the D20 version if it make you happy. Dude. Man, I gotta put this down. I gotta put it down. What the fuck was I talking about? Okay. Statit, Cthulhu, Babylon 5. Oh, yeah. This is gonna be like 2 hours long, this fucking episode, but I'm fucking loving it. I'm gonna split this up into like every time I've returned to a tangent, yes. Okay. So, hey Oreo, how you doing? I'm talking about great old ones and insanity. Yeah? Oh, you want to go? Okay. I'm talking about nerd stuff. I know. I'm talking about... Okay. Oh, I'm talking about scary stuff. Oh, don't talk about scary stuff, Daddy. I'm not going to. I'm going to talk about Babylon 5. Okay. What I was initially talking about, like an hour ago, was how you handle the guy who knows everything about series continuity and tries to pull bullshit on you. It's not as big as a problem as it used to be. I remember having a shitload of trouble with this. What game was I playing? Oh, this was World of Darkness. I was playing a vampire game, and there's always this guy who... See, I just went on another tangent. There's always this guy who has all the books. Like, he has all the clan books, and he has all of the side books, and so he knows everything about every clan. He knows who runs every clan. He knows where all the antediluvians are. He knows what all the politics are. He knows who runs Chicago. He knows who runs the guys who run Chicago. You know, he knows every city's hierarchy, and if he doesn't know, he can look it up. In like 10 seconds, he can look it up. So he knows everything. So like, if your party starts off in Chicago and you go, this is Prince Wilfred von Hammersmark, and the guy goes, that's not who the prince is? What the fuck? You know, so there's this fucking guy. And so I was like, yeah, I'd run into this and I caved. I was like, oh, okay, that's who it is? Never cave, by the way. Never do that. Because as soon as you do that, you give him an inch, you give him a mile. So, in Babylon 5, I saw this coming. So I was like, you know, if I start them off in Babylon 5, what the fuck am I going to do? When am I going to set it? And how am I going to deal with the fact that if they've seen Babylon 5, they've seen all of it, they know what's going to happen. And they know, like, if Mr. Morden showed up, they know he's bad news. Right? That you're going to try to shoot the guy in the face for no reason. The guy's going to be like, how are you doing? He's like, I'm Mr. Morden. I just have one question for you. What do you want? And the guy's like, I want to shoot you in the face with the PPG, motherfucker! Boom! You know? So I'd be like, why did you do that? He'd go, it's Mr. Morden. He's clearly some greasy, evil motherfucker. Did you see his hair? And I'm like, what? No! Fuck you! And like, you know, campaign ruin. So I'm like, what do I do? Because there's no way, like, you'd think what would you do? You know, you want to run a Babylon 5 game. You desperately want to run a Babylon 5 game. There's a few ways to do it. One is you don't set it on Babylon 5. You know, you set it sometime in the future. You set it sometime in the past. That's actually a really good idea, by the way, is to set it on the previous Babylon stations. I'm not sure how long those lasted, but every Babylon station before 5 was destroyed, except for one, but whatever. So... yeah, you could set it on a previous Babylon station, but again, it's not Babylon 5. You could set it like, there was a brief spin-off called Excalibur, I think it was? Crusade. And that was like more of a Star Trek-y type one, where they had a ship, and they, instead of a space station, they sailed around and did shit. They went places. You could do that, although Crusade sucked. Well, part of the reason Crusade sucked was because they aired the fucking episodes out of order. Anyway, another tangent. So... you're like, okay, what do I do for Babylon 5? Because my options are so limited here. And so what I did was, and if I may toot my own horn, this was fucking brilliant on my part. I was like, okay, here's what I do. And I explained this to them. I'm like, parallel dimension. It's Babylon 5, but it's not. Here's what it is. You guys determine on your own together what role you want to be on Babylon 5. If you want to be the captain, okay. If you want to be the Psychor operative, if you want to be a Psychop, If you want to be the chief of security, whatever you want, go ahead. If you want to be the fucking fighter pilot, hey, I can do that for you. So, and honestly, we never had that many arguments. Well, with only one time. But you'd think everyone would argue, like, I want to be the captain. Honestly, not. You know, if two people wanted to be the captain, they would just kind of like rock, paper, scissors over it and like, I'm the captain, I'm the XO. I'm actually stunned I didn't have a problem with that. We had one guy, actually, the thing people fought over was the Psychor operative. Because they're like, I want to be the psychic dude. I want to have the powers. Right? I think one guy wanted to be the Minbari diplomat, or Rangers. Everyone fought over the Ranger. Like, I want the fucking staff that fucking extends out. Like, I want to be fucking Marcus, and I want to be fucking Marcus. I'm like, you can both be Marcus, But yeah, actually, that was the role people fought over, was the Ranger or the Psychor guy. They always want to be a Psychop. In fact, that was the thing, is they always, because there's ratings, I think it's like P0 to P10, or actually they go higher than P10, but Psychops have to be P10. 10 is really, really good. And so when you're rolling a character, you're like, if you're going to be a psychic, you want to be a really good psychic. So you're like, oh, Psychops are 10? Shit, yeah, I'm going to be a Psychop. And I'm going to be stationed on Babylon 5 because I'm looking for rogue telepaths. Yeah, that's what so I want to be that. So, like, I go, pick a role. You are that guy. You're not that guy from the show. Like, if you pick the captain, you're not going to be Captain Sheridan. You're just the captain. Make up a name, make up a character. You're the captain. You make up a name. You're not Bester. You're this guy. He's your guy that you rolled. And they're like, that what? And so I go, here's the deal. In this universe, instead of Commander Sinclair or Captain Sheridan getting assigned as the command staff to Babylon 5, you were. This takes place at the beginning of the show, and instead of these guys, things turned out differently. Like, I kind of gave them a primer on how, like, the history of it can. Now, I mean, I know the characters in B5 had a history of the Battle of the Line and stuff like that. What basically made Sinclair and why Sheridan is famous for being the only guy to destroy a Minbari vessel. Okay, so I was like, here's how it actually went. It really didn't take that long. I explained so-and-so. You give me the character, I give you your history, or you give me your history, what you did in the Battle of the Line, whatever. And so I added my flavor to it, and I'm like, okay, instead of the characters from the show, you're the guys who get transferred in as the command staff. And they go, okay, right. And I'm like, there's more. So I even went so far as to say, like, and the characters you don't replace are still the characters from the show. So if nobody wanted to be the XO, Ivanov is there. If nobody wanted to be chief security, Garibaldi's there. Londo is still there. They were like, nobody wanted to be Londo. So, or actually, they were like, could I be Londo? Like, literally Londo, like, with the hair, like, Mr. Garibaldi, I was like, no, you have to make your own character. I was like, could I make a character who's exactly like Londo? I'm like, no. No. You go lay down, So I was like, but yeah, they wanted to be Marcus. Like, you can make a character that's cool on his own, so they did. So I was like, okay. So every character who didn't get replaced is still there. And so they go, okay. And I go, there's more. So here's the thing. You know how the show goes. You know who's a good guy and who's a bad guy. You know when the purple Kosh guy comes over there, you're in trouble. You know that, the shadows are coming. So I don't want you guys doing this shit where, like, you're arming up, and you're preparing contingencies for shit when the shadows come. I don't want you guys, knowing that, when that probe comes over asking them for information that is actually a bomb. I don't want you just shooting it. And they're like, we wouldn't do that. I'm like, no, you probably wouldn't do that because I'm onto you. But the thing is, you'd still know, so you couldn't help it. So it's that thing where, like, there's no point seeing the movie because you know how it ends, So I'm like, that wouldn't be fun. So here's what's going to happen. It's a parallel dimension. Things turned out differently. You guys are the new guys on the station, and I want you to forget everything you know about the show because it's not the same. It's not going to happen that way. In fact, characters the characters that are still there, like Ivanova or Morden or Londo or Kosh or all those characters may not and easily will not act the same way that they did on the show. Like, Londo will still probably act like Londo, but will Londo still make a deal with Morton? Will Kosh still be a good guy? You know, will he still be this enigmatic dude? Will he still help you? You know, maybe he's not as benevolent as, you know, he appears to be, or he didn't appear to be, but you know what I mean. So maybe Morton is just an encyclopedia salesman. He goes over there and asks, "What do you want?" And the guy goes, "I don't know. I want a low-fat yogurt." He's like, "Have you ever considered the benefits of having a really good set of encyclopedias?" You know, and that's not what I would do, but I was like, okay, from now on, the future history of this show is up in the air. Character motivations, character behavior, even things that are going to happen in the show may not happen the same way they did. So even the shadows, you know, maybe the shadows aren't as scary as they sound. So, I mean, not saying they're here to deliver milk and cookies, but maybe their goals are different. You know, maybe the Minbari surrendered at the Battle of the Line for a completely different reason. You know, maybe Delenn is, you know, you don't know what. Delenn is just as much of a mystery as anybody else. So, and that's not to say everyone's going to be a complete polar opposite. I'm not saying Kosh is all of a sudden going to be fucking Darth Vader. I'm not saying that Delenn all of a sudden is some evil Svengali who's committing genetic experiments on the Narns. I'm saying, like, you don't know. You know. So, even if I were to completely parallel the plot of an episode, which I would do, they would have to act, they were forced to act like they didn't know what was going on, which they didn't. So, I actually thought that was a really brilliant idea on my part, because they were off guard, and so it was actually a really unique experience to where it was the show, but it wasn't the show. You know, they were kind of building their own show around it. There you go. And back to way to the beginning, what do you do in Marvel superheroes games? Or anything with an established continuity? I guess that really is what it comes down to, is anything with an established continuity, be it Marvel, TV show. Another one, oh my god. One game I really wanted to like was Serenity. And they called it Serenity because they couldn't get the rights to Firefly. They could only get the rights to the movie. So in the book, they can only ever refer to something that happened in the movie. They couldn't refer to Firefly. It was so sucky. But, you know, if you're doing it in Serenity or Buffy, or there was a Buffy RPG. Oh, yeah. Actually, you named Supernatural. Actually, Supernatural's not bad. By the way, the Serenity RPG, it sucks. If you're gonna do Serenity, just pick. I would always, by default, say, like, if it's a show and there's no book, or the book exists and it sucks, go with GURPS. Learn GURPS. It's a really good game. The word generic in the title is its biggest flaw. You're like, generic? I don't want to play something generic. Don't worry about it. GURPS is really, really good. And actually, if you're masochistic, the hero system is actually pretty good. You could adapt a lot of games to doing shit like that. You know, I want to say Savage Worlds is kind of one of those somewhat universal games where you can apply the rules to anything. But yeah, if you've got Dresden Files, I was so looking forward to the Dresden Files RPG, and I haven't read it, but apparently it really blows. I'm so sad. I kind of want to read it just because I can't believe it. I love the Dresden Files novels. I'm like, how could this suck? And I read the first 30 pages, and the fluff material seems good. It's kind of like an intro to the Dresden Files. So I don't know, I've heard it's really, really bad. I'm trying to think of the other shows that were adapted to RPGs. Oreo, you behave. What other shows? Mostly the stuff that, Joss Whedon shows. Angel was done that way. They'll come to me. What sci-fi? Star Wars, Star Trek. The Star Trek RPGs weren't that good. In fact, I might have one up here. No. But, anything with novels, Wheel of Time. Actually, dude, the Wheel of Time RPG, D20, is really good. It has one of the best variations, the best takes on magic I have ever seen. It's really alien and weird to learn at first, but it's so rewarding, and I never got to play it, but it's so good. The mages in Wheel of Time are called the Aes Sedai, and they have what are called circles. Like, they have different colors that represent what they do well. So they have like circles of magic, and you can choose different levels in the circles, and sometimes they overlap and they kind of stack in certain. It's so brilliant. I loved it, and I used to really like the Wheel of Time novels until they started really slowing down, and they already started slow. In fact, I used to joke they went so slow they started going backwards, which they did. Like, at some point in book 7, he actually did Robert Jordan did a prequel. I'm like, dude, and it was a good prequel. But I was like, dude, move forward. I want to see how it ends. And then he died. And I'm being flippant, but that guy died. It was a real tragedy when he died. But you're like, oh shit, the story's never going to be finished. But there's actually a guy who's finishing it now. But that was a weird thing. But I liked Wheel of Time. I did. What are you doing, Oreo? She's going ape shit. I haven't paid attention to her in like an hour. She's trying to get my attention so bad. So I'm going to wrap this up pretty soon by saying, like, if you're trying to do something in an established continuity of any kind, Marvel, whatever, you can either do it before or after. In fact, Dragonlance had the same problem. If you wanted to do a Dragonlance game, you had kind of this problem where, like, shit, do I do it during the War of the Lance? Do I do it during the Fifth Age? Because Fifth Age sucks. Fifth Age was when the gods threw up their hands and were like, fuck it, we're leaving. You guys are on your own. And so all the gods left the world. Seriously, they got so pissed off. They were just like, you guys suck. We're going to Aruba. So they left. And the result of that being magic no longer worked on Kryn. And you're like, well, that's boring. I know, right? And the other thing about Dragonlance was everyone wanted to play the Heroes of the Lance. Nobody wanted to be some schmuck. That's the biggest problem with fucking Lord of the Rings. Of course there's a Lord of the Rings RPG, right? Because Lord of the Rings essentially inspired like D&D in general, right? Always had this huge problem with Lord of the Rings because if you want to set it during the War of the Ring, and of course you do, nobody wants to play some guys who are not in the Fellowship, right? If you okay, first thing, you can't be a wizard. Well, you can, but it's weird. It's if you want to play a ranger, you want to play fucking Strider. If you want to, everyone wants to play these characters, and they want to be involved in it because if you're not involved with the quest of the ring, because it seems pointless, because you're like at all times. These guys are telling, you need to go over here. You need to go to fucking Minas Tirith and stop these orcs from taking this outpost. And you're like, okay, but what's really cool is if we had like a ring bearer and we were going to Mount Doom, because that's actually important and dramatic. And the DM's like, yeah, but we got really important. It's this is the game. We're like, oh fuck. So you have some options, but let's say this is even the kind of thing where you can play the characters of the movie because A, you know how it ends. B, it's you're kind of shackled to the character because Boromir is gonna act like Boromir. Either he tries to take the ring from Frodo when he does, or he tries to take it before or after. But that's kind of the character where the ring influences and turns people. And basically what happens is if anyone doesn't act in lockstep with the plot, the game is ruined. The ring doesn't get destroyed, so you can't do that. So you either play other characters entirely. It's useless. You can either play different ages, like either before or after the War of the Ring, and that's actually feasible. But here's the problem: if you're trying to DM it, you had to have read like the Silmarillion, which is the Lord of the Rings book that nobody read. You had to be hardcore to read the Silmarillion, and the Silmarillion was really fucking boring. So I was in a game one time that was set before the fall of Numenor, which is where the Numenorians were like humans, but they were almost like demigods. All the Numenorians, they were like the best of men, which is why they say that the reason Aragorn is so cool, the reason Rangers are so cool, is because they have the blood of the Númenóreans. So that's, in the movie when Elrond is bitching to Gandalf, he's like, he says like, "Oh, fucking Aragorn, why do you like this guy? The blood of Númenor is all but spent." He's like, "Look, sure, he's descended from these guys, but the bloodline is so weak. This guy's just some bearded fuck." That's what. So Númenóreans, like, almost like if you were to a bad example, but one you might relate to, is in the original Vampire. The bloodlines get thinner the farther you get from Cain. So Cain is the original vampire, and he had descendants, and they had descendants, and so on. You could only get like 13 descendants down before the blood was too thin to even carry the vampiric curse. Okay, so like every generation got weaker. That's what the blood of Númenor was. So the Númenóreans were these really. So we were playing characters who were essentially Númenóreans, and so. But the thing is, though, like it was so aloof and bizarre, and things operated so differently in the world of the Silmarillion that you kind of had to act a certain way, or it was really, really out of character. And I think I remember playing, I was playing a guy who there wasn't even any really, like, I'm sure I'll be corrected, but like even sarcasm or like bad thoughts and stuff like that weren't really around until like Morgoth appeared. It was weird. Like there really wasn't any evil in the world before Morgoth came. I think that's one of the. I can't even remember the sentence. It's like, and then came Morgoth or something. There was probably a guy beyond Morgoth. I can't remember, but yeah. So this guy really wanted to make it work. Where like he's like, this was this great age of adventure when Morgoth came and he swept the earth of life, and there was this huge cataclysm, and he's like, it's gonna be so fucking dramatic. I read the Silmarillion and I loved it, and so it's gonna be great. And so it wasn't great. It was really bad, because nobody read the Silmarillion. I hadn't at the time, and I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I didn't know how characters were supposed to act. Like, I knew basics, but I was over my head. Like, one player knew the Silmarillion, and so he knew what he was doing, but I was like, so really, I can't even. Lord of the Rings is one of the hardest ones. I don't know how you do it. Even parallel dimension, shit, it wouldn't even work. Because like, okay, you've got this ring, and already you've got issues. Like, Frodo gets the ring, or whoever's standing in for Frodo, and he's like, oh, I got this magic ring, and whoever's playing the wizard is like, I'll take that. So he's like, yeah, we could play this a different way. What if Gandalf did take the ring, and let's just say he could resist its influence, and he put it on, because he might. What if we tried to get the eagles and fly straight to fucking Mount Doom? By the way, that's one of the stupidest complaints I ever heard. Why don't they just get on the fucking eagles and fly to Mount Doom? Here's why they don't do it. Is because if they tried to fly to Mount Doom, the Eye of Sauron would have seen these assholes coming on their giant fucking eagles. The guys on the wall of Mordor would have seen the giant fucking eagles and killed them. The fucking Nazgul had the fell beasts. You don't think these guys were doing anything else, like looking around? You don't think the fucking ring is like a beacon of light to the Eye of Sauron? Because it is. So, if these dudes were flying the fucking eagles to Mordor, the Eye of Sauron would have been like, boom, there, Nazgul, go kill that shit and bring me the ring. That's how it would have ended. So, fuck you, people who said you ride the fucking eagles. Although, I would have loved to have seen them try that. If they were all full of assholes who were like, yeah, let's do this and fuck up Spoony's game, I'd have fucking wasted you, and I would have laughed doing it. They'd have been like, oh shit, yeah, the Nazgul have fucking dragons. They're not dragons, they're fell beasts, I know, before you start posting comments. But yeah, you can't even do the parallel dimension thing. Because, like, then you've got this ring, you've got the all-powerful ring, you've got characters who could easily just fucking crack Frodo on the head and take it, because they'd try. You'd run into Saruman, and they'd try to kill fucking Saruman and fail. Yeah, they'd try to take the Nazgul in a straight-up fight. Because they stat them. Yeah. I can't. They would go so far off the rails it wouldn't even be recognizable. The quest of the ring would just be fucked from minute one. You know, they'd run into Tom Bombadil and put a broadsword through his face, or they'd try. Tom Bombadil would wreck their shit, honestly. I'm so glad they took him out of the movie. I hated Tom Bombadil. Hey ho, the Dario, Tom Bombadillo. You know, they'd try to probably kill Bombadil and fuck his wife. You laugh. They'd try. Yeah, I don't know how you do it. Aside, you'd have to relocate it to a different time. But where I see a problem is you'd have to do it before the War of the Ring, because if you did it after, Sauron is destroyed. You know, the ring is gone. I'm sure there's bad guys here and there, but there's no crisis anymore. I mean, I guess you could come up with something. You'd have to. Like, yeah, that's about the only way I could see doing it. But I honestly don't know how they do the RPG. I can't think of a good way to stat it out aside from being side characters, and it sucks being a side character. Again, like I said, DC Universe Online, you're some sidekick. Fuck that. You know, if you're playing, I could never play Lord of the Rings in that situation, because I'd be like, I want to be Aragorn. Like, fuck this shit. I want to play some fucking Minas Tirith dude manning a fucking wall and being sent to just kill some nobody orcs, and when the really important guys are doing this shit, like, okay, that's fine for the guys. Like, I want to be a hero, you know. I want to be the guy who's making history and being important, and of course, if you were playing side characters, you'd know they'd try to get involved with the Fellowship of the Ring every chance they could, because they'd go places they know the Fellowship is likely to be. Like, oh, we're gonna go to Minas Tirith. Eventually, they're gonna pass through here, you know. Yeah, that's just about the only way. That'd be so hard. That reminds me, you ever play, I can't remember the name of it. There was a really lousy fucking, I don't remember if it's Xbox or PS2. It was probably Xbox. There was a Lord of the Rings game, a video game, that was called, like, The Third Age? I think it was called The Third Age, where it was a turn-based RPG, and it was so lame. You didn't play the Fellowship of the Ring. You played a group of 3 guys who were trying to catch up to the Fellowship. I'm not even kidding. Like, the Fellowship had already left, so, like, you're tasked by Denethor. Like, you play a Knight of Gondor. You're tasked by Denethor. They're like, oh yeah, my son Boromir has gone off on some fucking stupid quest to lead the Fellowship of the Ring. He went off on his own. He's gone off to get some fucking ring of power. I want you to go find Boromir and bring me that goddamn ring. And you're this knight who's completely generic. He has no character. So you go to Rivendell, and Elrond is like, oh yeah, Boromir, he just left. He's going to the Gap of Rohan. And so you go to the Gap of Rohan, and along the way, you meet an elf, and along the way, you meet a dwarf. And so, like, all of a sudden, the novelty of the three what is it? What do they call themselves? The 3 walkers or something, 3 runners. They were when Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, I think they call them the 3 hunters or something like that. They ran off. That was like a first. That was like that hadn't happened ever. You know, elves and dwarves never got along, and they certainly didn't associate with men. And so, like, when these 3 races were actually cooperating, that was like, in terms of Middle Earth, that was like historic. You never saw that shit. But now, you're this Knight of Gondor, and you meet up with this elf who, of course, wants to help, and you meet up with this dwarf who, of course, wants to help, and all of a sudden you've got these 3 dudes. And so, you go to the Gap of Rohan, and you're like, oh, we missed them. Fuck, there's snow everywhere, and of course there's Uruk-hai everywhere, and so you fight the Uruk-hai, and then you're like, you know where they must have gone? Moria. And so you go to Moria, and you're chasing these dudes through Moria, and you fight the goblins, and this is where it gets really funny, is when you get to the Bridge of Khazad-dûm, you see the Fellowship running across the bridge, and then Gandalf does his, you shall not pass, and he puts the staff down, and the I can't remember how this goes, but like this was, I think, just after Fellowship was released, the movie. He breaks the bridge and he falls down, and the Balrog falls down and pulls Gandalf up. And here's what you fight the Balrog. I can't. When did this happen? I think what it was is Gandalf is doing his shit, like he's trying to fuck with the Balrog, and then your guys run up from behind and attack the Balrog and try to distract it long enough for Gandalf to do his thing. That's how it goes. So like you guys run up behind the Balrog and it's doing its whips and shit, because everyone wants to fight the Balrog, right? So you're fighting the Balrog, and eventually you kick its ass, which should never fucking happen. But you kick the Balrog's ass, the bridge goes down, and they all fall. And of course, you're on the other side of the bridge, and you can't get past the Balrog, so you got to run off. So the Fellowship keeps running, and they go to Lothlorien, and then you're like, oh, we got to find another way out of fucking Moria, and so you go out, and so you go to fucking Gondor, and you just miss the fight, and no, you fight in the war, but you never get to see Aragorn and Gandalf shit. So then you never make it to the Crack of Doom. Like you make it to the wall. And who do you fight at the gates of Mordor? I want to say the Mouth of Sauron, but I don't think you do. I can't remember. I think what happens is, I remember doing this, but I don't know if it's the last boss or an optional boss. I remember you do this, but you get to the very end, and you fight Sauron. Yeah. You fight Sauron. I could not make this shit up. What happens is, you go to the gates of Moria, and I think there's a final boss, but then there's a final boss after the final boss. I think that's it. So, like, I think you fight the Mouth of Sauron or something like that. So, you fight that guy and you beat him, and then you go fight Sauron. So what happens is, Sauron, in this case, is personified, or whatever you want to call it. You fight the Eye of Sauron at the top of that tower that's looking around. You go up on top of that tower and you fight the Eye. That's Sauron. I'm serious. This fucking game sucked. I actually played it through because I couldn't believe how much it sucked. You fight the Eye of Sauron. It falls down. Roll credits. And I'm like, oh my god. Oh my god. Oh, Jesus. It was so bad. I was like, in fact, I was like, you show up and you're fighting the Eye of Sauron, and I'm like, this is so, are you serious? Are you serious with this shit? Oh my god. There actually were some PC games that paralleled you played the heroes of the Fellowship, although it was really weird. You formed your own Fellowship. So, you were Frodo, and you had Gandalf, and you could pick your companions. So, and it wasn't just the other hobbits. Like, there was Merry and Pippin and Sam. Sure, you could take them, but there were other hobbits that you could recruit. Like, you could recruit like 6-7 hobbits. So there was a guy named Fatty Bulger who you could recruit, and you had Fatty in your party. And yeah, there was other dwarves, and there was other elves and like elvish lords you could take. And you went through Moria. Moria sucked, by the way. Man, that was hard. I only beat Fellowship. I only ever got as far as Fellowship. It was actually, I didn't really like it, but in hindsight, I like it a lot better. But yeah, it was really funny in that you could recruit all these weird characters. I don't remember if you could recruit dudes like Elrond. Probably not. It kind of skipped right ahead to Moria. It really wanted to get to Moria fast, as I remember. But yeah, it was strange. And of course, you get jumped by Nazgul. And what do? You try to fight the Nazgul, right? So it was the funniest thing, where like the fucking Nazgul would attack you, and probably the first time you would lose, and then what you'd do is you'd start over, be like, I'm gonna fuck this Nazgul up. I'm gonna fuck this guy right in the ass. So like, you recruit every hobbit you can in Hobbiton, Like you get Fatty Bulger, you get some other dude, you get some Proudfoot guy. I don't know. There's a ton of them. So like you fill your fucking fellowship with hobbits and Gandalf or something like that. You go over there and the Nazgul jumps you, and the hobbits go. Poof. Like seriously, it's like the hobbits just fucking surround this guy, and Gandalf is like the only guy who can do shit. Like he's got Glamdring his sword. But yeah, the hobbits are actually doing stuff. Like they whittled the guy down because they got these little. You do meet Tom Bombadil, as I recall, and so you actually can get the barrow knives, and so like those actually hurt the Nazgul, and so like you got these little dudes like just nickel and diming this Nazgul, and you can actually beat them, which again doesn't really make any sense because all blades perish that pierce the Nazgul, by the way, so like that wouldn't have worked. I don't know if they ever did that in the game. I can't remember. It's been so long ago. But yeah, you can kick the Nazgul's ass, but it's again, it's like kind of like Cthulhu in the sense that even if you kill them, you don't kill them. They're just kind of dissipated, and they just return to Mordor and they come back. They're pissed off. But yeah, but even that, actually that was one of the few cases where like you could do a little bit of your own thing in terms of plot. It didn't really affect the plot, but you could choose your own fellowship. At least in the first game you could. So if you wanted a party of 6 hobbits, fuck it, you could have a party of 6 hobbits. But if you were doing an RPG, that wouldn't work out so good. Try to think of a way to do that. Lord of the Rings, that would be curious. Although there was a few Lord of the Rings games. There was MERP, Middle Earth Role Playing. Again, another really stupid name, MERP. I think it was called The Dark Eye. I can't remember if that was it. Something like that. But they were not really that good. They kind of went into a lot of Silmarillion fluff. I think they really wanted you to do before the War of the Ring. I initially said you couldn't be a wizard. You could. There are other wizards that you never see in the movies. I think there are 8. You're going to correct me on this. I think there were 8. And I think you only ever see 5. Gandalf, Saruman, Radagast the Brown. There's either 5 or 8. I think it might be 5, because I think there's 2 guys you never see. I think there's one guy who's like something the Blue, who might be referred to, or the other 2 are blue mages. They just like to wear blue. I don't know, but they're never really referred to. There's a couple wizards who are just kind of off in the ether, doing shit elsewhere that never get involved. So, like, in theory, you could be a wizard. But, in fact, they might actually have stats for that. They tried to do something, because there's always a guy who wants to play a spell. You're like, oh, fuck, I can't play a wizard. You're like, no, there's only 5 of them. Because they're fucking, what's the name? Ire or something. What are they called? Damn it, my memory is so bad. They're really not wizards. They're kind of like the personifications or the mortal vessels of these beings of light, which is why when Gandalf dies, he doesn't really die. He's returned to this kind of ether and returned, because you can kill them, but you can't. It's weird, they're kind of like these demigods. So like you can't really be a wizard, but you can, but you shouldn't, So every game I've ever seen tries to kind of hand wave it away. I think even MERP did this, where they're like, okay, look, you can't be a wizard, but there are some guys who can kind of work magic. Kind of. Like, they dabble. There's nobody who's at all even remotely powerful. And then there was Middle-earth or Lord of the Rings Online, which, of course, there are spellcasters who can throw shit like nuts, which makes wizards completely irrelevant in terms of their specialness. So fuck it, who cares? It's an online RPG based on Lord of the Rings. Dude, seriously, Tolkien, if he knew there was an MMO based on his books, he would be spinning so fast in his grave, he'd drill the fucking China. Oh, God. Oh, my God, would that go... He'd be like, what? Oh no. Oh, no. He'd go so nuts. It almost drives me nuts. My older brother he basically went apeshit as soon as he saw... when they diverged from the book at all. He was the kind of guy who was like, they shouldn't have taken Tom Bombadil out. Fuck this movie. But so he was like, when he finally lost his shit, he just like, no, fuck it, I'm out. Was during the battle, or before the Battle of Helm's Deep. He's like, it's looking really bad because these guys are outnumbered like 20,000 to, there's like 300 dudes in this. 300, whatever. So they're like, it's thousands to one, you know, or at least hundreds to one, and so things are looking really fucked. So nobody, okay, in the movie they're like, oh, we're fucked, we're so outnumbered, we are so fucked, and then they hear a horn, and it's the elves. And the elves send like a few hundred guys to man the walls with their bows. My brother stood up in that. My older brother, he was like, bullshit! Bullshit! He was like, no! No! He was so fucking pissed. And I was like, that was a really good movie. And he's like, what the fuck are you on? No! No! Fuck this shit. And I'm like, what are you so mad? The elves? The elves show up at Helm's Deep? Fuck you! Betrayal! He's like, what's the big deal? So the elves show up. He's like, you don't understand. You're not my brother. Like, what do you don't understand. It's, the point of it is they overcome these impossible fucking odds and nobody comes to help them. They overcome on their own. I'm like, dude, chill out. You're fucking going into the red rage again. He's like, ah! He's like, I'm not watching the other one. Fuck this. Next you know, they're going to be having the fucking Gandalf throw the ring in the crack. And I'm like, it's like, this really bugs me. Like, yes, it bugs me. Fuck this. Next you know, they're going to have fucking Wormtongue stab Saruman and throw him off the fucking tower. And then he's not going to take over Hobbiton and scourge the Shire. And I'm like, they wouldn't do that. Oh. he's like, I can't do it. No. And what the fuck? They took out Glorfindel. I was seriously like, I gave this series another chance with Two Towers because they took out fucking Glorfindel. If fucking Arwen finds them when Frodo gets stabbed with the Nazgul. Fucking Arwen? No. And I'm like, I kind of liked it, because Glorfindel, like, he shows up, you never fucking see him again. Whereas Arwen gets, like, 5 minutes of screen time in the books, and then she, like, fucking vanishes for the entire books. For the entire series. And he's like, fucking Glorfindel belonged in the movie! And I'm like, okay, motherfucker, alright. You're spraying on me, you're fucking frothing at the mouth, dude. It's like, I hate these movies. And I'm like, okay, dude, okay. I don't even know where I was going with that. The role-playing games. But yeah. So, I have raged on forever. I don't know where I'm going to break this video up, but I kind of went on a good rant there. This is how I get when you talk about RPGs with me. I just go on tangents. You should try to track, flowchart my tangents that I go on and how I return to them. It'd be fucking amazing. So, you got a super special deluxe episode of Counter Monkey this time around. I started off with this really lame topic. Yeah, superhero games are not very good because Cyclops is an asshole. So, like, long story short, here's the point I was trying to make. Cyclops is a douchebag. Eye lasers? That's it. How is he still alive? Why do they still keep writing this motherfucker? Because he's fucking Emma Frost? Who gives a fuck, you know? I hate the X-Men, too. I fucking hate the X-Men. You ever see an Ultimatum? I was so happy. They kill Cyclops. So don't worry. Even if it's a spoiler, sure, but who gives a fuck about Ultimatum anyway? Linkara did a rant on fucking Ultimatum. We're like, but yeah, fucking Magneto, like, shifts the poles and causes a tidal wave to, like, sink the entire eastern seaboard or some shit. And so, like, Professor X gets killed, and I don't even know why he bothered, because, like, Cyclops is like, oh, yeah, well, we gotta try to, like, we gotta try to rebuild public opinion's thoughts on mutants. Good luck with that. So he gets in front of like the Capitol building and he tries to hold like a press conference where he's like, not all mutants are bad. Okay, one of us was a rogue who sank New York under a tidal wave with his obscenely godlike powerful magneto powers. But we're not all bad. Even though, like, history is rife with all sorts of characters of the mutant kind who have gone bad and nearly destroyed the world, like Apocalypse. And anyway, we're not all bad, and like nobody's buying it. Like seriously, the mutants should have just packed it in. Like the X-Men should have just been like, yeah, it's kind of over. This whole mutant equality thing, because we're kind of fucked. And by the way, Senator Kelly was right. While I'm off on another, like, of course, mutants should be registered. Okay, it's we're not exactly going to like the internment camps where, like, back in World War II, the Japanese were shifted to internment camps. There really wasn't a reason for that. Whereas, like, you can't draw parallels necessarily with like, racism or racial profiling or internment camps when it comes to mutants, because I guarantee you, there's nobody in Japan who could fire optic blasts from their eyes. There's nobody in, no normal guy can casually teleport inside the White House and stick a knife in the president's face. There has to be some accountability here, because these guys are a clear and present danger to the United States, as reinforced thousands of fucking times in the comic books. I'd be right behind the Sentinel program, honestly. Jesus Christ. Okay, the X-Men are good guys, but how many... Okay, seriously, I gotta wrap this up, because I'm getting pissed off. Cyclops, douchebag. That's it. Call of Cthulhu, awesome. I'm out.